Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, May the 11th, 2023. Arachnophobia is the irrational fear of spiders. I mean, it's irrational because we're thinking they can do something they can't. Now, there is a reasonable fear of spiders. Some spiders can bite and they can cause serious injury. For example, a black widow spider can bite. If you're in Australia, a funnel web spider can bite, and they can make you very sick, and in certain extreme situations they can even kill you. So there is a rational fear of spiders. Now, in terms of myself, do I suffer from arachnophobia? Yeah, I think I do. If a spider reaches a certain critical size, I do get nervous. I start sweating and I behave in perhaps an unreasonable way. I can't relax. That spider has to be dealt with. But at the same time, I do accept that if you kill a spider, that brings 7 years of bad luck. So killing spiders is just not something I'm going to do. I don't know what would happen if I was confronted with a funnel web spider, but by and large, I take the view, kill a spider, 7 years of bad luck. So with a spider, you have to take measures to carefully remove it from where you're living, take it outside. If it's a really big spider, you might want to take it a long way outside. And that's arachnophobia. Of course, we know that spiders are good things to have around. They eat bugs, and they should be respected. It's strange. I'm not really afraid of wasps. I don't really get nervous when I see wasps around. And I know for sure that wasps can sting because I've been stung by wasps on numerous occasions, but I've never been bitten by a spider, to my knowledge. So this is kind of the nature of arachnophobia. And I suppose one kind of is reminded of Winston Smith in 1984. We all have our fear, the thing that will break us. I don't think for me it's quite spiders. It's probably something else. But Arachnophobia was, of course, a film. I think it came out, was it in the early 90s or something? And its star was, or one of its stars was Julian Sands. And Julian Sands disappeared on January the 13th of this year while hiking in Southern California. And on one of the comments to my videos, I was asked to look at his chart and perhaps speculate about what might have happened to him. Well, it doesn't look good. He's disappeared. If you go hiking, you disappeared and you haven't been found for months, it's a fair bet that something bad has happened. Still, I do want to look at his chart, see if there's anything interesting going on. But I must warn you, I have looked at the chart and I don't find a great deal of stuff going on. But I do find one thing involving Mars, and I will be looking at all of that now. So here is the chart of Julian Sands. We do not have a time of birth, and that's really bad because it completely limits what we can say. It's just a chart for January the 4th, 1958 at noon, and that's it. So what do we see? Anything that's relevant to his disappearance? Jupiter is semi-square his Mars-Saturn midpoint. Does that say anything about what happened to him? Well, if you do have Jupiter on a Mars-Saturn midpoint, as I think I've mentioned before, then it might indicate a quick death. So perhaps if something happened to him on that mountain, maybe that indicates that he died quickly. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. There's also Mars. Now, Mars is what is interesting in this chart. he's got Mars in Sagittarius. So what happens if you've got Mars in Sagittarius? Mars is a male planet. Um, it's how you express your energy. Hiking would be a perfect way to use your Mars in Sagittarius. I mean, that's a perfect thing to be doing. Um, and then Mars is trine Uranus. Uranus is the planet of accidents, but a trine, it's quite a weak aspect of trine. It's not like a square or an opposition or a conjunction or a semi-square. Um, so it's quite weak, but it shows that this is someone who likes to express their independence by going hiking. I think he was hiking alone, and that's perhaps what Mars trine Uranus um, wanted to do. Also, there is a wide conjunction between Mars and Saturn in Sagittarius, and that might hint perhaps at a certain amount of frustration, a feeling of needing to do something, and hiking for him was possibly the perfect way to get rid of any frustrations he might have had. Um, he's noticed he's a sun in Capricorn. Apparently, until his disappearance, he was a prolific actor, and it wasn't just arachnophobia. He made loads of films, and hardworking Capricorn. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Look at his north node. The north node is where we're supposed to be going to. South node is where we're coming from. His north node is conjunct Neptune. Now, a lot of people born in the late 50s would have had north node conjunct Neptune. But still, it might indicate why he got involved in acting. I mean, acting in many respects is a very Neptunian job to be doing. Acting is all about it's all about glamour, bright lights, that kind of stuff, and so this was his direction. And Neptune is also, of course, about a disappearance, and so maybe Neptune on the North Node is, suggesting that that's this is him disappearing on a mountain. Perhaps in some way he was living out his destiny. This is what he was supposed to be doing. Now that doesn't make sense, perhaps, because you think you're not supposed to just disappear on a mountain, but perhaps for him and his transition into another realm of being, that was appropriate. Notice also that Neptune is making a semi-square to Saturn. So the Neptune Saturn may indicate the struggle on one sense to transcend, because that's Neptune, but Saturn is also about a sense of duty. And how do you marry the sense of duty with the sense of wanting to transcend? And yeah, I somehow kind of think that was connected with his disappearance. But it's still pretty vague because I don't have his time of birth. I also, though, have a chart for his disappearance, and so let me just show you his chart for his disappearance. So I'm just going to create two wheels. I'm going to have his chart in the inner wheel. That's his horoscope, and then the outer chart is the position of the planets when he disappeared. I mean, I set this for 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, he could have disappeared any time. Anyway, I mean, on January the 13th. I think his disappearance was actually reported at 7:30 in the evening, so it's a fair bet that, by 7:30, things had already gone completely wrong. Now, Mars is what I'm interested in. Mars, on that day he disappeared, certainly at 9 in the morning, was at 8:08 Gemini. So Mars was opposition his Mars. Mars opposition Mars. So um, if I were to have advised him whether he should go hiking on his own with Mars opposition Mars, I would have said no. I mean, not because I would have told him that he would have a terrible accident, not because I would have told him that he'd die that day or anything like that. I would have just suggested, well, maybe he might have a fall, maybe. Maybe he'd hurt his leg. I mean, Sagittarius, he's got Mars in Sagittarius. In the part of the body Sagittarius rules is the thigh, so you might think of a thigh injury or twisting something, or I don't know, something like that. So I would have kind of recommended that he doesn't go hiking on that day. Of course, he would have argued perhaps that he had to go hiking, that perhaps he felt frustrated, and Mars was being really activated by this Mars opposition Mars, as though this was something he had to do. It's quite impulsive, but yeah, that is a hint. But it's not a big deal because we have Mars opposition our Mars every 2 years. But so is there something else going on? And yes, there is. When he was hiking that day, it was just after his birthday, January the 13th. It was about 10 days after his birthday. And we noticed that the sun is at 23:14 Capricorn. So what's the big deal about that? Well, the big deal about that is that the sun and Mars were exactly at 135 degrees to each other. So while Mars was making an opposition to his Mars, the sun was making a 45 degrees aspect. So that aspect between the sun and Mars, which was exact on the day he was out hiking, was hitting his own Mars. So without having any other information, and just bearing in mind again, it is a chart with no, I don't have a time of birth. My feeling is that what happened on that mountain was it wasn't like getting, I don't think, I may be wrong, but I would suggest that it's not like getting lost and dying of exposure. I don't think it was like that. I think it would be more to do with Mars. It would be more to do with an injury, or perhaps even an attack or an assault. That's Mars. So it's an act of violence. I said not necessarily violence because you're attacked, but it could be violence because you've had a fall, or I would have said there's some injury here. An injury, one moment there was no injury, the next moment there was an injury. That's my feeling with this Mars. I said I don't think it's like a lingering death through exposure. And we have to remember that he does have Jupiter on his Mars-Saturn midpoint, as I've just said, so that might indicate a quick death. And with Neptune on conjunct with North Node in his natal chart, it's perhaps not surprising that no one's found his body yet. That is, in a way, that is his karma. That's where he's going. The mystery of just no one knows. There's Neptune. It's shrouded in a dense fog. So that's my view of Julian Sands, and I'm really sorry not to have be able to say more, but I don't really get much else. So let's now turn to today's planets, today's astrology. So this is the astrology for Thursday, May the 11th, 2023. As usual, this chart is set for midday. And we notice that the moon is in Aquarius. So many of us are going to want to be very independent. We're not going to want other people to be involved in what we're doing. We certainly don't want to be told what to do with the moon in Aquarius. And perhaps that's going to cause some problems because the moon is making a square to Mercury. Mercury is the communication planet. It's retrograde in Taurus. And so when you have moon square Mercury, you can have arguments, not not massively heated arguments, but just misunderstandings and people not being prepared to compromise in this situation, because the moon in Aquarius is in a fixed sign, Mercury in Taurus, that's a fixed sign. So there isn't much room for compromise. So if we're going to plow our own course and there are things we want to do, it's probably best not to talk about it, not to tell people that we've decided to go it alone for today. Just do our own thing and don't advertise the fact. On a more positive note, Mercury is making a sextile aspect to Saturn. So I would see that as being a great day for organization, perhaps relating to money or material things, because Mercury is in Taurus. We know that things aren't perfect. Mercury is retrograde, so certain details have gone astray. And we can perhaps start to organize ourselves now. Now, we might not get immediate results. Mercury is still retrograde, but very soon, I think in about 5 days, less than 5 days, I think it's about 4 days' time, I think Mercury goes direct. So when we start organizing ourselves now, we should see some results in less than a week. Anything else about today? Okay, Venus is making a 45-degree aspect to Uranus. There's Venus and there's Uranus. I suppose I'm always supposed to say something about relationships because with astrology, most people, I won't say most people, but very often people go to astrologers or watch this kind of video because they want to know about their love lives. I'm going to perhaps be disappointing here. I'm not particularly focused on that, but with Venus semi-square Uranus, that does suggest that relationships are going to be a little unstable. So if you're in a relationship, don't be surprised if your partner does something unusual and is very keen to express their independence. Or perhaps it's you who does something unusual, you who wants to be very independent. So if you're looking for romantic harmony, you've either got to not make a big show of expressing your independence, or you've got to tolerate your partner or your intended partner's propensity to express their independence. I should also point out that Hades is aspecting the Mars-Neptune midpoint. Mars-Neptune is about sleaze. Hades is about sleaze as well. And so we could put our energies into some really negative things. Depends who you are, but it might, even if it's not crime, it could be, I don't know, drugs, alcohol, something bad, the low life. This is the kind of thing you may be tempted to put your energy into if you are of a certain disposition. So be aware of that. And so if you possibly can, steer clear of things that are sleazy, criminal, and yes, representing the low life. Now, as far as my forecast of the 12 signs are concerned, now I should also say I was actually playing with ChatGPT, and ask it to see if it could do 12 signs, to do horoscopes of the 12 signs, using AI. Nice writing, but it was a complete disaster when it came to actually getting anything right. The ChatGPT is not able to tell you what the planets are doing and write today and providing a text for it. Can't do it yet. Of course it will. And so what I'm doing is going to be obsolete perhaps very soon. But anyway, in the last few years, now while I still don't have effective competition from AI, I will do my forecasts for the 12 signs for today. Aries, there could be a misunderstanding made worse by your impulsive words. Taurus, at work you communicate very well and your ideas could hit the right note. Gemini, you can bring things under control, so a good day for Geminis in leadership positions. Cancer, think about the impression you're making. It may not be as good as you think it is. Leo, one person says one thing, another person says something else, but the only person you can believe in is you. Virgo, partners may be serious, but their vision should be respected. Libra, you're restless and the status quo isn't good enough. You can't be creative in a committee. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because Venus is the ruler of Libra and it's making a semi-square to Uranus, which is a very independent-minded energy. Scorpio, someone's talking too much, but you don't have to listen. Sagittarius, a short trip seems tempting, but is it worth the mental strain? Capricorn, workmates are behaving erratically, but consider your own capacity for making mistakes. Aquarius, you're in tune with the universe, but you might still be misunderstood. And finally, Pisces, it's a day for weighing the evidence. Decisions should probably be postponed. Let's now move to my I Ching reading. It's not particularly spectacular. The first hexagram I got is 9, which is taming power of the taming power of the small. What that means is that we are in a sense of anticipation. We're expecting something. But at least to begin with, it's not going to happen. The I Ching talks about dense clouds, no rain. We think it's going to happen. We think the rain is going to come and fertilize the crops and whatever else it needs to do, but it just doesn't happen. So we mustn't get disappointed if we just can't, things just don't come together for us, at least at the beginning of the day. We have to work on ourselves. We need to refine who we are and not get buffeted by disappointing news. So that's the first state to be in, the first stage. And then this hexagram moves to hexagram 19, which is approach. And this means that, yes, something is on its way. Somebody is on our way because it's approach. Someone is approaching us. And I'm talking about something fortunate. I'm not talking about something bad approaching us. Someone wants to get to know us. Someone wants to share something. And we just have to wait patiently. And we mustn't expect things to happen before they're ready to happen, which is another way of saying be patient. So that's all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.